Hello there, I'm attorney Kelly Longtin from Kelly Longtin Law, and today I want to address this video to any of young parents out there or grandparents who are taking care of their grandchildren. And I want to talk to you about summer camps and what you need to be prepared. So summer camps are expected to be back in full swing this year after 2 pandemic summers forced them to close or to operate at a limited capacity. Now, camp is a great opportunity for kids to make friends or to try new activities and gain self-confidence and resilience. But as parents and counselors know, a lot of preparation goes into making lasting summer camp memories. Camp, as I know, because I attended summer camp when I was a kid, it's a very unique experience. And it's because it may be the only time of year that kids are away from home and without their parents for an extended amount of time. And although the time spent apart can be positive for that whole parent-child relationship, there are a number of contingencies that families should plan for ahead of time. And then after your child is off at camp, it may be too late to update information or medication lists and temporary guardianship permissions. Like most aspects of our society, summer camps were hit hard by COVID-19. In the first summer of the pandemic, about 2 out of 3 summer camps across the country had actually closed. Now, summer camp life was somewhat back to normal last year in 2021, but the majority of camps that did reopen operated at a limited capacity or had some other COVID-related restrictions. With pandemic restrictions lifting nationwide and a sense of normalcy returning to American life at last, this should be a full return of camp activities for the kids this summer. After 2 years of distance learning and social distancing, excessive screen time and time away from peers in summer camp, there may be an antidote to lingering social pandemic effects. Now, parents who passed on summer camp for the last couple of years or who are planning to send their kids to camp for the first time, they may need a little help with that summer camp checklist. In addition, items such as sunscreen and swimsuits and extra socks, parents should fill out the necessary paperwork to ensure that their child gets the care that they need while they're away from home. And this is something that people don't always think about. In many states, a temporary legal guardianship allows an appointed individual to make most decisions, including medical decisions, on your minor child's behalf. The guardianship is for a fixed period of time, up to a year, depending on the state, and can usually be terminated at any time. So when the camp is over and the child returns home. Other states have a specific power of attorney for a child's medical decisions because parental consent is typically required before medical care can be provided to a minor. Although in many states there are exceptions to that general rule, parents may want to have a backup plan in case their child has a medical emergency at camp. Now, appointing a guardian may not be necessary if the camp is close to home and you can respond in an emergency. But if the camp is farther away or you'll be traveling or otherwise unavailable and you don't have any family or friends that are close by who can step in for you and authorize the medical care, then a temporary guardianship can be useful. Instead of appointing a temporary guardian or executing a power of attorney, you may also want to be able to give the camp permission to authorize medical care. However, there are some camps that won't allow this, or it limits their scope of authorization, or they just don't want the liability. So a temporary guardianship or a power of attorney may dispel any doubts that you may have about gaps in your minor child's medical care. You want to make sure that your contact information for your child is updated. So who the camp should contact if something goes wrong. So presumably you're going to be your child's primary contact. But if you live far away and you're not able to be there immediately in an emergency, you may not be the first point of contact. Or there could be a situation where the camp cannot get in touch with you right away, such as if you're traveling or working and unable to get away. Maybe you're having a medical procedure or for any other reason. Now, emergency contacts are people other than the parents whom the camp can reach out to when something goes wrong. The emergency contact form may allow you to authorize the same people to pick your child up from camp, which makes it logical to choose a contact who lives close to the camp, or at least closer than you. Pick a trustworthy and dependable proxy or person to avoid confusion or surprises. Tell your child who that emergency contact is. You definitely want to have a conversation with them about this. Also, let's talk about medications. So taking medication is one aspect of home and school life that will continue at summer camp. However, summer camp medication management often requires planning ahead to comply with laws and regulations. Now, camp practices surrounding medication are governed at the state level. Depending on where the camp is located, it may have some latitude regarding how it oversees and dispenses medications. The camp's specific policies about medication management really should be spelled out in writing for you. And if your child takes prescription medicine, you'll probably have to sign a permission and a waiver form that allows the camp to actually dispense it. It's normal for these forms to gather information about the medication's name and dosage and dispensing instructions. So you also want some other considerations for campers who are 18 or older. So when planning for a minor child who is headed off to camp, most of that legal work falls on the parents. But the situation is different for campers who are over the age of 18. And although they may still be living at home, an 18-year-old is legally an adult. So therefore, they require their own estate planning documents. All young adults should have a basic estate plan in place, even if they have little or no money or property. If your legal adult child does not have an estate plan, now is a good time to put together some of the following documents for them before they head off to summer camp. The first thing that they're going to need is a medical power of attorney. And that power of attorney grants another person the legal authority to act on that person's behalf. So in the case of a medical emergency, that person is allowed to make medical decisions on behalf of the child. And then your child can revoke that power of attorney at any time or when it's no longer necessary for that camp. They also want to look at having an advance directive or a living will if it's valid in the state in which you live. So injuries are quite uncommon at summer camp, and serious injuries are even rarer, thankfully. But whether at camp or while traveling between camp and home, there's a possibility, however remote, that a camper could become so badly hurt that end-of-life decisions such as feeding tubes and ventilation, and maybe they have to be resuscitated, will need to be made. A living will is a legal document that spells out a patient's preferences with respect to end-of-life decisions if the patient is unable to communicate their preferences. So let's talk about a HIPAA form. So that's Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act authorization form. That's a lot to say. So we just call it a HIPAA. And that's just a form where your child gets to say, hey, my parents can have access to all of my medical records, and they can have access to any healthcare information that I have. And it will also allow people to communicate with the healthcare provider about that patient's care or condition and treatment, but not necessarily make those medical decisions. It just allows them to get medical information. The other thing they want to have in place is a financial power of attorney. So as with medical powers of attorney, a financial power of attorney gives someone the ability to deal with their finances in the event that your child's unable to do so themselves. So I know a lot of financial transactions are done online these days. If your child doesn't have access to the internet or a device at camp, they might need somebody to temporarily handle their finances for them. Well, I hope that if you have a child heading off to summer camp, that goes off with a hitch and they have a great time. But in case something unexpected happens, a bit of advanced planning can go a long way and provide much reassurance for them and also for you. The parents of minor children hold all of the cards when it comes to legal permissions. But children over the age of 18, as we had just discussed, they have to take an active role in preparing for their own summer camp adventures. So if you or your child have any camp-related legal questions, please feel free to reach out, and we are licensed in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. So I want to thank you for watching. I'm Attorney Kelly Longtin from Kelly Longtin Law.